East Los Angeles has traditionally been the heart of the Latin community in Los Angeles. Mexicans have been living there since the time when California was part of Mexico. Throughout LA County there are other communities which have a deep Mexican history: San Gabriel, San Fernando, Pacoima, Canoga Park, Pomona, Hawaiian Gardens, and many more, but East LA is the most urban and conglomerated. It is the densest gang region in the entire USA with the most gangs per square mile. There is about 200 gangs in a 10-mile radius. Modern-day gangs came from a phenomenon known as Pacicos or Zootsuiters. They dressed in big suits with pants that were baggy and got narrower near the floor, with a long gold chain that arched from the belt and up into the pocket. The suits were worn in flashy colors and with felt hats, sometimes rounded on top. The Pacicos lived by a code of honor and respect. They organized into clubs with ritualistic initiations. The jumping-in method became the universal initiation for these clubs. These clubs were started as closely knit units which were considered a second family to its members, and to many with problems at home it was considered their only family. There was a huge cultural and generational gap between the Pacicos and their parents. This is one of the main reasons they started. As time passed, these clubs started gaining popularity among the youth, and like all youth, they had fights. Fights were expected to be one-on-one, and once the fight was over the problem was solved. Some groups blew the problems out of proportion and bitter rivalries began. At first the main disagreements were over the honor of their girlfriends or rucas. This is still a main reason today. Other times it was over popularity: who had the most firm carriaje, who wore the best clothes, who had the finest ruca, or who was the best fighter. It was also regional at times. People on one side of town made fun of the styles people were wearing on the other side of town. These petty problems always occur in youth, and it was no different with Pacicos. What changed the face of Pacuco clubs was the drugs and guns which started coming in during the Vietnam War. This was a very militant age, and many brown pride groups were born and eventually evolved into gangs. There were also many vatos which had gone to war and come back trigger happy. Once killing your enemies became accepted, the modern Cholo was born. Dealing marijuana and carrying a cohort or gun became the norm. The introduction of crack and cocaine in LA speed up the process. Drugs and prime drug markets became the new reason for war. The barrios of East LA began to turn a huge profit off slanging drugs. The whole time new gangs were being created to usurp old ones. One gang would get swept up by police and a new one would come up in its place. Then the members of the original one would come out of jail and try to win their neighborhood back. This went on for 30 years. Some gangs came to be greatly hated and people in their own hood didn't want to join them, so they created new ones. Sometimes these new ones would join up with other gangs for backup or convenience. The story of LA is like the story of all the countries in this world. It is like a German confederation. The first barrio in East LA is disputed between White Fence and Maravilla. White Fence's original barrio is Olive Boyle Heights and allegedly used to have cliques throughout the San Gabriel Valley in northeast LA. Maravilla's original barrio is LA proper and most of southeast LA extending to the Rio Hondo and south to Slauson. Maravilla too has cliques throughout SGV and the Inland Empire. These two gangs are the classic East Los rivalry and probably the longest-going feud in LA. Both of these barrios have lost extensive territory and are midgets compared to their former size. In numbers though they are bigger than ever. I heard once that Hazards, Avenues, to Unerville, and Frogtown were all once cliques off of White Fence, and members from White Fence claim even more barrios broke off of them. Later gangs such as Michigan Chicano Force, Barrio Nuevo Estrada, and all the flats sprung up in East LA. Northeast LA is another old region in LA barrios. Its most famous, and perhaps most infamous gang is the Avenues or Avendas gang, which is named after the numbered avenues off of Figueroa. They themselves are two or even more gangs in one, consisting of 43rd Avenue and Cypress Avenues. These two gangs at first did not get along but later joined together for convenience. The 43rd allegedly broke off of Hazards and the Cypress allegedly broke off of Frogtown. They are a very large gang in numbers and are the PD's worst nightmare. Another Old Northeast gang is Toonerville. Their relationship with Frogtown is hard to follow. Some say Toonerville started Frogtown, others say Frogtown started Toonerville, others say they had nothing to do with Ecother. Some say Toonerville started the Rascals, others say Frogtown did. This, I believe, is evidence that the two are interconnected. Then some say they all started off of White Fence. East LA gangs in general believe they are superior in culture and honor to West LA gangs. This is another ongoing feud in LA. It is hard to pinpoint an actual place and time to the birthplace of most East LA gangs due to their age. Most gangs at least know of a year in which they were started, and in East LA the 70s is considered brand new. If your gang isn't 4 actual generations old, it's considered a fad. Many of the flats and east sides of gangs which were originally South Side are allegedly in former Maravilla territory. S38 Street and S22 Street are just some examples. The flats, mainly Primera and Tortilla, are the most active barrios in East Los now. Even gangs which are adamantly West Side now have east sides on the east side of the river, ES 18 Street, ES 14 Street, and ES Playboys. Now it is common practice to force tagging crews in the barrio to click up or get checked. This has been a great source for new drug-dealing disciples. Some crews are so large that they are split between 2 or more barrios which are sometimes enemies, such as OFA, which got split between 18th Street, Clover, Lincoln Heights, Avenues, Burlington Street, and many more barrios. AMK became a clique of Primera flats, calling themselves Avenue Marisol Crooks. Most gangs which have a K as their last initial used to be crews such as Tiny Insane Criminals, and even Crazy Ass Mexicans. Also gangs that have awkward sounding names that have tagger sounding initials.